Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. Well, I have a special report. I guess it's pretty much a discussion regarding some of the things that are going on recently. And I have a compilation of some different things that I've seen, and it's evident that we have some really important things to think about. And I know that there's a review and an idea of information that maybe people are already aware of, but there might be a potential that many others haven't seen this information. So I'm just going to move along and share this and also try to tie together some common threads in what makes sense. So I ended up seeing this. I know I've seen it before, maybe years ago, but at the time it didn't really make a lot of difference. I didn't think about it, but I'm just going to let you listen to it. And it's interesting because it talks about the Orwellian philosophy and some of the things that they say about New York City and ideas regarding that. Um, I just thought, let's just listen and hear what they have to say.
Spoiled children who've just been lying in the bathtub all day, just playing with their plastic duck, and now they're just thinking, well, what can I do?
Okay, yes, we are bored. We're all bored now. But has it ever occurred to you, Wally, that the process that creates this boredom that we see in the world now may very well be a self-perpetuating, unconscious form of brainwashing created by a world totalitarian government based on money, and that all of this is much more dangerous than one thinks? And it's not just a question of individual survival, Wally, but that somebody who's bored is asleep, and somebody who's asleep will not say no? See, I keep meeting these people. Just a few days ago, I met this man whom I greatly admire. He's a Swedish physicist, Gustav Bjornstrand, and he told me that he no longer watches television, he doesn't read newspapers, and he doesn't read magazines. He's completely cut them out of his life because he really does feel that we're living in some kind of Orwellian nightmare now, and that everything that you hear now contributes to turning you into a robot. When I was at Findhorn, I met this extraordinary English tree expert who had devoted his life to saving trees. He just got back from Washington, lobbying to save the redwoods. He's 84 years old. He always travels with a backpack because he never knows where he's going to be tomorrow. And when I met him at Findhorn, he said to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "New York." He said, "New York, yes, that's a very interesting place. Do you know a lot of New Yorkers who keep talking about the fact that they want to leave but never do?" And I said, "Oh, yes." And he said, "Why do you think they don't leave?" I gave him different banal theories. He said, "Oh, I don't think it's that way at all." He said, "I think that New York is the new model for the new concentration camp, where the camp has been built by the inmates themselves, and the inmates are the guards, and they have this pride in this thing they've built. They've built their own prison, and so they exist in a state of schizophrenia, where they are both guards and prisoners, and as a result, they no longer have, having been lobotomized, the capacity to leave the prison they've made, or to even see it as a prison." And then he went into his pocket and he took out a seed for a tree and he said, "This is a pine tree." He put it in my hand and he said, "Escape before it's too late." See, actually for 2 or 3 years now, Chiquita and I have had this very unpleasant feeling.
Okay, so it's an interesting conversation. I remember listening to this a while back, years ago, and thinking, well, I like New York City. I never felt that way. Of course, I didn't live there, but to live there, I mean, it's more of a city than any city. I mean, it's pretty much a concrete jungle, as they say. And I remember the first time I went there, I remember looking up and saying, "What happened to the sky?" I mean, there were so many buildings. It was just overwhelming to me at first. Although the people were pleasant, it's there's a lot going on. But what is the big issue here? What is the main issue? And it is, I guess this could go for any city in any location where people do get trapped and locked into these regions that they're not necessarily happy living there, but they get locked in and it's becomes a familiarity. And he referred to it as being lobotomized, which is pretty severe, and also mind controlled. But everything was quite interesting. I could understand where they were relating to, especially, coming from someone from Findhorn who's really embracing nature and the earth and everything. The city is very repulsive. But what was interesting is that gentleman actually hands him a pine cone. And I thought, all of a sudden, all these ideas started to come up because for some reason or another, these different things popped up through time. And I started looking at this weird article, or as a promotion of Kanye West. Kanye West filed a trademark for Yeezy's beauty, skincare, and fragrance. It covers everything from makeup to scented pine cones. Oh, that's strange. And if you look down here, it was almost like there was an emphasis on the pine cones. And it says checks, notes, scented pine cones. I mean, he made sure that he got a trademark on all these things, whether it's makeup, false eyelashes, nail polish. I mean, they're just wanting to corner the market in whatever, trademark that they want to portray, as well as deodorant, toothpaste, and even check notes, scented pine cones. Of course, many of you have seen this. And by the way, this is Dionysus over here. Here's a pine cone. And there's, of course, the picture of Marduk. Holding a pine cone, carrying the purse that we talked about. Definitely does something else, doesn't it? The people that seem to know what's going on in the background seem to know about the pine cones. And we see, here's this Angkor Wat, Cambodia. The pine cones there. There's pine cones over here by the Buddha. Just another one in Rome. This one is holding the staff of Osiris, is Egyptian. And of course, they talk about the third eye. That looks like the pine cone. But is it just about that? I don't know. I'm wondering if it has to do with Marduk letting us know that he's around. Or even Dionysus. Or they're all using the same tool that are causing pain and sorrow on our planet. The symbol of Mercury. So here's Marduk, Dionysus, called him Bacchus. And in Germany, the middle one is in the Piazza in Rome. In between the third eye and the Eye of Ra. So I'm not sure. Third eye and the Masonic triangle. All the they all use the same symbology. The caduceus, New York City. There it is again. These Illuminati symbolisms. It's pine cones. Picture of Hitler's desk. It's interesting. And like I said, some of you have already seen all of this, but just, we're going to be going over a few things because it doesn't make any sense why he's involved, or it does. So Anyhow. Okay. So this I thought was interesting too. This just happened, was it June 21st, 2020. Let's open this up so you can see it. Lenin statue unveiled in West Germany. I mean, it looks like you're watching an old Russian film or something. It's very strange. Somewhat peaceful protest. She doesn't want the flowers. Okay. So anyhow, that I thought that was interesting. And so so I started, refreshing my memory about, everything is, I'm a trained Marxist. That's getting to be sort of a statement now. And in my opinion, I know that people don't agree with some of these things that I say, but all of these are belief systems, they're religions, essentially. And even though they have this certain type of idealism, that many of these belief systems have already been played out and have been proven to not be as effective, or to have a different set of problems. And so if you're going to come up with an idea or a movement, why are you recycling something that is not 100% efficient, or 50, not even 50% efficient? I mean, it ends up becoming a dictatorship, essentially. Lenin tried to control things, and then Stalin came in. I mean, look at the history. Although, this is the problem. No one's looking at the history, at least the ones that are supposed to. Younger generations, they have, how are you going to learn from what others have learned if you keep on getting rid of the information that could have empowered you? Instead, you allow it to become your weakness, and you have no idea. It's like as if no one has researched, studied, or looked up anything. In post-revolutionary Russia, this is what you should be looking at. I mean, all this other stuff is, all bright and shiny, and isn't how wonderful, how perfect, and, the Bolsheviks got rid of the royalty, and we were all oppressed, and we didn't have any food, and now we have food. Okay, right? But in the United States, we have food. So, and here, became problems, and they started to push all sorts of industries, and hard labor, and some other problems came up. And personally, the ability to own your own store, to be able to do what you want, a lot of your freedoms are lost in these communities. And we know what's going on here. This is the other happy place, where there's 24/7 surveillance, plus they're getting into your thinking. Although it's heading that way over here as well because of this influence, because they're voyeurs. I think they're voyeurs, yeah, because they need to be observing people 24/7 to get into everything that they're thinking. The cult of Lenin, it is a religion. It is a belief system. The cult of the leader arises when a country's regime, or more rarely an individual, uses the techniques of mass media, propaganda, the big lie, spectacle, the arts, patriotism, and government-organized demonstrations and rallies. All of this is not what it plays out to be. But we already know, many of us already know this, and we're like, well, what are you thinking? Tell us. It's propaganda. It's the big lie. It's the arts, the false patriotism. Government organized demonstrations and rallies that create an idealized, imaginary thought of something pure and perfect and wonderful. It's idealized. There's no fact in it. It is the idea that it is perfect, that is going to work out wonderfully. Heroic, the worship image of a leader, often through unquestioning flattery and praise. The cult of personality is similar to the hypothesis, except it is established by a modern social engineering techniques, which is a discipline in social science that refers to efforts to influence particular attitudes and social behaviors on a large scale, whether by governments, media, or private groups, in order to produce desired characteristics in a target population. Social engineering can also be understood. One-party states, dominant party states, totalitarian. There we go. Totalitarian. Who's there? They look familiar? Hitler, Mussolini, Mao Zedong. They're all there. Stalin. Contrary to the Marxist doctrine, the speech was later made public and was a part of the de-Stalinization process the Soviet Union went through. So they had to de-Stalinize, which was consisted of a series of political reforms after the death of long-term dictator Joseph Stalin. There's no control. You lose more control. Marxism is a method of socioeconomic analysis that uses a materialistic interpretation of historical development to understand class relations and social conflict. I mean, essentially, they're trying to say that this balances off, that people will all have something, I don't know, an even playing ground, or the even amount of wealth or whatever, or lack of wealth is more like it. Limited opportunity. I mean, this is basic. Anyhow, I thought this was interesting. There's another oldie but goodie, information that they told us, and most of us said, well, that's just boring. I don't even want to listen to that. But, well, let's listen to it anyhow.
Differences among our people constituted the weakest and most vulnerable point in our social fabric. By constantly probing and straining at this one spot, they calculated that eventually the cloth could be torn apart, and that Americans could be divided, weakened, and perhaps even set against each other in open combat. We mustn't kid ourselves into thinking that the communists have placed their agitators only into the black communities. They're working both sides of the street. They want hatred, violence, and bloodshed between the races, and they don't care how they get it or whom they use, even children if necessary. Here is a book that I think ought to be in every home library. It's entitled Color, Communism, and Common Sense by Manning Johnson. He joined the party as a young man because he honestly believed that the communists were trying to improve the conditions of his people. He was a dedicated communist, and eventually he rose to one of the highest ranks. But after many years, he discovered that instead they were merely planning to use his people in a bloody revolution to destroy America. And when he woke up to this, he dropped out of the party and devoted the rest of his life trying to alert his fellow citizens of all races to the true nature of the Communist Party as he knew it to be from the inside. Manning Johnson said, black rebellion was what Moscow wanted. Bloody racial conflict would split America. During the confusion, demoralization and panic would set in. Then finally the Reds say, workers stop work. Many of them seize arms by attacking arsenals. Street fights become frequent. Under the leadership of the Communist Party, the workers organize revolutionary committees to be in command of the uprising. Armed workers seize the principal government offices, invade the residences of the president and his cabinet members, arrest them, declare the old regime abolished, establish their own power. Now, here is a piece of vicious communist propaganda that perhaps some of you have seen. It's called The Crusader. It's written by Robert F. Williams, one of the organizers of the Revolutionary Action Movement. In this issue of The Crusader, the communists call not only for extensive chaos within the cities, but for putting to the torch every village, every forest, every field, and every barn. The plan is for raging fires from one city to the next. The reason? Well, first, there's the value of sheer destruction. Secondly, it would force us to deploy our defenses and rescue units over the widest possible area. The communists point out that as long as our police and National Guard remain concentrated, they're invincible. But if they can be forced to spread out over the entire city and into the countryside as well, then they can be picked off from ambush one by one. And the third value of massive fire to the communists is psychological. The average American, they say, soft and decadent, when he sees billows of black smoke rising from one horizon to the other, when at night the only light he has to see by is the flickering red from flames leaping into the sky, he'll become paralyzed with fear and panic. He'll run away and hide and do nothing to interfere with the guerrilla bands as they strike at the community's power centers. The Crusader explains how to set up sniper units in crowded metropolitan areas, how to manufacture jumbo Molotov cocktails, the gallon jug size, and how to mix the gasoline with certain ingredients to make it burn like napalm, how to pour gasoline into utility manholes in the streets to set fire to the main telephone cables, how to put sulfur tips from matches into air conditioning units and blow up large buildings.
So you can see that this is very extensive, and we've seen a part of this already. I don't think this is anything we shouldn't take serious. It's an old plan, but it's working well today. It doesn't make any sense. We can see that our educational system has definitely let us down. And we assumed that our next generations were learning something that was worthy of understanding how to not be easily manipulated. They learned how to use social media. We all have. But we shouldn't neglect all of these other things. It's great to have advanced technology, but that is only temporal if your freedoms get taken away, or you give them away. So this is a righteous cause to become a Marxist. But he is in the pocket of the Rothschilds. He was employed by him. Historians have confirmed that Karl Marx was not only related to the Rothschilds, but was also employed as their agent in order to subvert democracy and corrupt the socialist movement. There was nothing idealistic in what he was doing. He didn't even believe in it. He got paid. Why are we following this? Why are we playing their game? Karl Heinrich Marx was born in Prussia as an Ashkenazi to Herschel Mordecai and Henrietta Pressburg. During the Napoleonic War of the Sixth Coalition, Marx's father, Herschel Mordecai, became a Freemason. 1813, joining with the Loge Litoile, I can't say that, the Hanseatic Star, in Osnabrück. After the war, he feigned conversion to Lutheranism as a means to better infiltrate the Prussian society. He pretended to be an assimilated bourgeois Enlightenment liberal, interested in free thought, and was wealthy, owning some Moselle vineyards. It was just the whole thing was, I mean, he was a spy. Marx's grandparents, Nanette Salomon Barent Cohen, belonged to a wealthy Amsterdam family. Oh, there it is, bloodline. We'll have all these links. Just to who are you following? What is it that people are interested in? Why believe a lie? This is just another chess move of the elite. I'll have to start over here again.
I find the cops are wrong for leaving.
Yeah.
Yep, this is America, dude. This ain't right.
Oh, let's start here.
We have a YouTube channel called Benny on the Block. So
Okay.
it's a man on the street interviews.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is pretty impressive, right? You got the gloves on, strong border security. You're letting people in and out. Pretty great.
Yeah.
Hey guys, Benny Johnson here, reporting from the DMZ in between America and Chaz. Here inside of Chaz, you have some really important items that are being addressed that do not happen in America, such as extremely strong border walls, armed officers patrolling the streets, the ability to create mob justice and violence, and the ability to not have any free speech and be kicked out whenever the mob wants you to be. So, we are going to be talking with people today about what life is like inside of the communist utopia, Chaz. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. Let's go find out.
So this is, I thought I'd share this. I thought it'd be quite interesting for you to see. It's very tongue-in-cheek,
What's
but
the barrier for?
To let people in and out.
Let people in and out. All right. So strong borders.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Strong borders,
I hear you talking about the wall.
Yeah.
So we got to build a wall.
but the proper wall never got built.
A strong border, that you have to be able to control who comes in and out, right? Of this area.
It's less about that and more about trying to. It's very important. We got to keep people out that we don't want.
We know who's coming in. We know where they're coming from. We just have to know who's coming here.
In here, you know.
True. How else are you going to do that without a big wall?
No, you need a big wall, biggest wall possible.
I will get it built.
Because we're actually letting people come in and out of here.
Totally. I'm just wondering, I'm wondering like what the barrier is for. What is the barrier for? If you're going to get rid of the police, the first thing you need is a bunch of armed men enforcing your rules, right?
Yeah, so in CHOP, we're abolishing the police and replacing it with kind of a group of officials who they're there to kind of enforce the agreed upon rules that we come up with.
no,
Yeah.
police.
That's excellent. That's the number one thing you should do as soon as you get rid of the police.
Yeah, there's strong borders because right now, you know, we can't trust the police. We're gonna have a better form of police in here, but it won't be police.
The Seattle People's Department.
I like that name, that's good. SPD, yeah, I like that.
Wonderful. We'll call it the SPD.
You know, the fact that we can be out here and we're building a bigger, stronger community and we're taking care of our people and we don't have this gang in black and blue driving around all day, we are set. Don't get me wrong, I love our brothers in blue. We are not a terrorist organization, as Trump says, not a terrorist organization. We are just a loving group of family. But the fact that we can stay out here and we can take care of our people, that's way better. We got food out here, we got drinks, coffee, anything you need. We are self-sustaining. When we leave, after all this, we do not want all this graffiti out here. We're going to be out here fixing the graffiti. We're raising funds to change it. We are not here to make any type of footprint. We do not want to leave a footprint.
So who's doing the graffiti?
There's no telling. Who's going to clean it? We are.
Are you from Seattle?
Yeah.
It seems to be strange to have such a beautiful place just sort of taken over and the police kicked out. It's odd.
Yep, sure does. Yep, it ain't right.
What do people in Seattle think about this?
It ain't right. Bunch of thugs.
Yeah.
Bunch of thugs. Words going around. People upset. They can't come down here and do the business.
Right. Is that like you? Have you been affected by this?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, sure have. Everybody is.
Do you find it ironic that the first thing that these communists did, was set up a large wall and then arm it with people?
Yep. I find the cops are wrong for leaving.
Yeah.
Yep, this is America, dude. This ain't right.
Especially business owners, I heard they're charging them to stay open, whatnot. Is that true? Do you know?
That is completely true, yes, 100%.
Yeah, I think that's ridiculous, but...
Yeah. We call that extortion in this country.
Yeah.
But this is America, so that's Chaz. So this country, America, that's called extortion and it's illegal. Over there, I have no idea what the rules are.
Oh, yeah.
So what's it like at like 2 o'clock in the morning?
It's like the purge. There's been assaults, rapes, all kinds of stuff, and everybody has said that they called PD, and PD says we are not servicing that area.
Describe Chaz in one word.
Chaos.
Yeah.
You'll die out here, bro. You'll die out here.
A lot of the business owners are enraged, but they actually won't do interviews or talk to us because they said the repercussions. They're afraid they're going to get targeted, which they will.
So they take a look at me, and the closest thing would be racially profile me. And then because of that, I've had people come up to me and ask me for my ID, ask me to prove who I am, have told me that I can't go into a place or move, have asked the press that we're with to show their credentials. Of course, these are people that haven't been voted into power, have just seized power in that area and decided that, well, quite frankly, just violate whatever civil rights they feel like I shouldn't deserve at that time. Again, it's people controlling other people because they think they know better.
Fascinating stuff here from the Chaz America border. Turns out when you start your own country, what you need is really strong borders, a physical barrier, guys to guard it, which you can see right there behind me, and then roving bands of armed men to make sure that justice is instilled in your society. Really special. They totally solved all of the problems here inside of America. Reporting from the DMZ outside of Chaz, this has been Benny. See ya.
Okay, so here again, that's another. I know I played the whole thing. I thought he did a very good job, and we are then saving some of these. So we're just gonna go on to the next. Now this was something else that I saw too. Was it bothered me a lot, but I mean, I think everyone should feel bothered by this.
Understand nothing. Come on. It's not right. It's not right. It's not right what y'all doing. I came from the ghetto too. Same as all of you did. Y'all need to listen. But y'all messed up my business. And you call it black power. You mad at the white man. Why destroy my business? Why destroy my truck? Why steal my computer? I'm trying to make it. Could you understand that? Can't y'all see it? I'm trying to make it.
That's horrible. And this guy right here.
I'm so angry right now because I was behind the movement when I saw that video, and now y'all had to go do this. This is the stupidity that we're dealing with. Yes, you're going to set race relations back 100 years because one tragedy occurred that everyone agreed, they were united in their agreement that it was a tragedy? Are you stupid? I don't know why people suddenly think it's okay to be racist, but it's not racist because we're black. No, that's stupid. If you're a black supremacist, you're every bit as racist as a white supremacist, destroying random people's cars. I saw a video where this black guy's like, he's like, we got a 2-for-1 now. You kill one of ours, and we gonna kill 2 of yours. I don't see white people burning their cities to the ground every time one of them is killed. When that black man was beating those white people in the nursing home, I didn't see white people rioting in the streets. I didn't see white people rioting in the streets when a black man gunned down 2 elderly white people that were visiting their son's grave. I didn't see black people rioting in the streets when the black police officer in Mississippi choked the teenager that was saying that they couldn't breathe. It got to the point where black business owners were putting signs in their windows saying, hey, we're a black business. Don't loot us. Don't break our windows. Don't destroy stuff. And I know people are like, oh, well, Trump tweeted something that could be considered racist. He said, you know, they shouldn't be destroying stuff. You're darn right they shouldn't be destroying stuff. He said, well, where was this energy with the white protesters 2 weeks ago? Well, the white protesters weren't destroying stuff, okay? If you want to be treated as equal, you need to behave as equal. And I'll tell you this, it's not the white man's fault that black people are not doing as well in America as some white people. If you're living in America today and you are not successful, the only person you can blame is the person you see in the mirror.
I mean, that's powerful. I probably could continue listening to what he had to say, and that was very emotional seeing that man, you know, obviously worked very hard to build his business. And my heart goes out for all of these people. It's like being an innocent bystander, and you just everything gets wiped out that was yours, that you worked hard for. You served the local neighborhood, and you provided a service or a product of some sort, and then it's just completely annihilated. And you're wondering, like, why are you stealing from me? What have I done? And it's perplexing. People don't understand what's going on here and what this movement has created, this insanity. And like he mentioned too, is like, why are we destroying our cities? And I have footage of a woman going through a grocery store, and she says, this is our neighborhood. Why did they do this in our neighborhood? I can't even get milk for my baby, you know, that kind of thing. And it's very, very, very strange why people are getting gratification of hurting people that are unrelated to anything that they're angry about. Which, you know, makes you think about the level of mind control or whatever leadership this has been. And it's bringing people into a very, very dark place. Very dark place. I mean, how do you sleep at night knowing that you caused harm to many of the people that, you know, you should be caring about? Here's another one. They tried to warn us. 1984.
Propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets used the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions.
Okay, to change their perception of reality so that they can't come up with their own conclusions. That is very serious mind control. That's very serious propaganda.
In the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in four basic stages. The first one being demoralization. It takes from 15 to 20 years to demoralize a nation. Why that many years? Because this is the minimum number of years which requires to educate one generation of students in the country of your enemy, exposed to the ideology of the enemy. In other words, Marxism-Leninism ideology is being pumped into the soft heads of at least 3 generations of American students without being challenged or counterbalanced by the basic values of Americanism, American patriotism. The demoralization process in the United States is basically completed already. For the last 25 years, actually it's overfulfilled, because demoralization now reaches such areas where previously not even Comrade Andropov and all his experts would even dream of such a tremendous success. Most of it is done by Americans to Americans, thanks to lack of moral standards. As I mentioned before, exposure to true information does not matter anymore. A person who was demoralized is unable to assess true information. The facts tell nothing to him. Even if I shower him with information, with authentic proof, with documents, with pictures, even if I take him by force to the Soviet Union and show him concentration camp, he will refuse to believe it until he is going to receive a kick in his fat bottom. When a military boot crashes his balls, then he will understand, but not before that. That's the...
So he's saying essentially, even if presented with the truth, they will still not get it and they will still not believe it. How many of us have encountered that? Trying to present the information, even when it's right in front of their eyes, and they still can't see us. So this is what they refer to as demoralization.
Tragic of the situation of demoralization. The next stage is destabilization. This time, subverter does not care about your ideas and the patterns of your consumption. Whether you eat junk food and get fat and flabby, doesn't matter anymore. This time, and it takes only from 2 to 5 years to destabilize a nation. What matters is essentials: economy, foreign relations, defense systems. And you can see it quite clearly that in some areas, in such sensitive areas as defense and economy, the influence of Marxist-Leninist ideas in the United States is absolutely fantastic. I could never believe it 14 years ago when I landed in this part of the world, that the process will go that fast.
Thanks to the educational system, the colleges, high schools, and mass media.
The next stage, of course, is crisis. It may take only up to 6 weeks to bring a country to the verge of crisis. You can see it in
COVID-19 is a perfect crisis.
Central America now. And after crisis, with a violent change of power, structure, and economy, you have so-called the period of normalization. It may last indefinitely.
The new normal. I don't think it's an accident that they're using that term. The new normal, they're putting it on television, trying to further brainwash everyone to go into this process that's called normalization. Now listen to what he says.
Normalization is a cynical expression borrowed from Soviet propaganda. When the Soviet tanks moved into Czechoslovakia in '68, Comrade Brezhnev said, "Now the situation in brotherly Czechoslovakia is normalized." This is what will happen in the United States if you allow all these schmucks to bring the country to crisis, to promise people all kind of goodies and the paradise on earth.
And that's happening now. So we're learning, being trained like good little slaves. This is the new normal. This is the term that you're going to use now. So we're just letting you know, and we're going to say it enough so that you start repeating it and using this term, because we're going to show you, we're not only going to do this to you, but we're going to have you accept it and then even spread the information of what we're telling you. So now you're going to even work against yourself in the whole process. And we're going to promise that you're going to have a lot of good things, even though you're not going to believe that it's bad, but you're going to think because of their tone and their intonation in the way that they present things in a form of propaganda, that you will be convinced. And so what is substandard, you are going to think is excellent. And that's how they do it.
To destabilize your economy, to eliminate the principle of free market competition, and to put a big brother government in Washington, D.C., with benevolent dictators like Walter Mondale, who will promise lots of things, never mind whether the promises are fulfillable or not. Your leftists in United States, all these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. When their job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see that Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think that they will come to power. That will never happen, of course.
You hear that? So that's the first thing they do if in the communist regime is the people that know too much are their greatest threat. Those that did their research, those that have an idea of what the government's doing, understand propaganda. You think that you're going to be rewarded. No, just the opposite. They will want to eliminate you. And that's the issue. Now, some people could contend, well, even in our situation here in the United States, that's the problem or in any other nation. They don't technically want any of us to be aware of what's going on or the methods of propaganda, but the ones that are played the game with them worked for them. They worked for them for free. They promoted the Marxist-Leninist ideology, or I shouldn't even call it an ideology. It's a facade. And so they promoted this, making it sound all nice and wonderful. And then ultimately, then they get worked for free. They get pulled in. They help create this whole paradigm where there's a huge loss of freedoms or the nation or something's taken over, and here they are thinking that they're going to be rewarded, and they get just the opposite. Remember, a lot of people try to defect the Soviet Union.
They will be lined up against the wall and shot. But they
see that? They'll be lined up against the wall and shot. You can't know too much. And that goes for all these Antifa people. They're disposable. They imagine themselves as being rewarded. They imagine that they've accomplished some great feat, but they're tools. They're used. They're disposable to these type of regimes.
May turn into the most bitter enemies of Marxist-Leninists when they come to power. And that's what happened in Nicaragua. You remember most of these former Marxist-Leninists were either put to prison or one of them split, and now he's working against Sandinistas. It happened in Grenada when Maurice Bishop was already a Marxist. He was executed by a new Marxist who was more Marxist than this Marxist. Same happened in Afghanistan when first there was Taraki, he was killed by Amin, then Amin was killed by Babrak Karmal with the help of KGB. Same happened in Bangladesh when Mujibur Rahman, very pro-Soviet leftist, was assassinated by his own Marxist-Leninist military comrades. It's the same pattern everywhere. The time bomb is ticking. With every second, the disaster is coming closer and closer. Unlike myself, you will have nowhere to defect.
What did you think?
Right? There it is. I mean, you can't get any more plainer than that. Putin and Trump versus the New World Order, the final battle. The unknown that lays ahead of all of us is both exhilarating and scary. Exhilarating in the long term, but rather scary in the short term. All empires eventually die, and we're in the terminal phase of the New World Order that will not recover from the Russian roulette game it has been playing. For Vladimir Putin handed it a loaded gun, and it pulled the trigger. The last few weeks put everything in place for the last battle. There are so many different facts, events left and right, and I'll try to do my best to remain methodical in the complicated expose. And they go on and talk about the New World Order. This was done in 3/31/2020. So they go back to the international bankers and talk about 1773, and then it went into important changes over the years and the concepts. The objectives haven't changed an iota. Unfortunately for them, international banks have been looting the planet. Boy, isn't that interesting? Right here. The planet through the US dollar since 1944. So, and we know that they're doing this. So I think some people feel justified in looting as well, just because of the looting. But you're not looting them. You're not looting them. You're not looting the New World Order. You're looting the average person. And the point where drugstores and primary grocery stores and things like that, people had to shut down in neighborhoods because they couldn't see any point in keeping them open. But anyhow, it goes on. It tells a story on, chloroquine, everything that we've been going through. Digging the abyss. International bankers couldn't see it coming in 1991 when they dominated 95% of the planet after the fall of the Soviet Union. It seemed that nothing could halt their ultimate mission to complete their Orwellian dream, destroy a few countries in the Middle East, enlarge Israel, and get the total control over the world oil market, the last piece of their Xanadu puzzle that they have been working on for a whole century started with the Balfour Declaration in 1917. It's a game. It's a game of power at all of our expenses. I don't want to sound helpless, but it's frustrating, isn't it? They're not happy until they get this. Or civil wars. That they turn the protests where we're trying to get some respect and get people to peacefully protest and change, the way the system's run that benefits everyone. And instead they turn it violent. They send in their Antifa crew and create a race war and whatever else that they try to do. And then wanting this cryptocurrency, trying to, the banks failing, whatever it is that would throw everyone off. So people are scrambling, just trying to catch up with what's happening. And yet there's more. And he even has a punchline here. Yeah. Like, what the hell is all of this? I'm going to leave the article there for you guys to read. This happened in 2017. Massive movement to overthrow George Soros explodes in Macedonia. Too bad it didn't work. Major initiative called Stop Operation Soros, a movement dedicated to stopping evil machinations of Nazi collaborator, billionaire George Soros, who pretty much sold off his own people, has taken off in Macedonia, called on the citizens around the world to fight against one-mindedness, the civil sector, which is divided and led by George Soros, the one who funds Antifa and many other things. But he's not the only one funding Antifa. But it was some of his ideas that influenced a very, very heartless, anti-human, mass destructive concept of what to do on the earth, taking advantage of their wealth and using it to harm others, weaponizing their power and wealth against innocent human beings. Notice that none of these guys are going after leadership. They're going after us. I put this here. I know that sounds a little ridiculous to some people that I put a cartoon, but I want you to notice the path here. Staying in line, the highest intention for humanity. There's all these different other ways that you could go. All these other timelines. If you would see all the colors as a timeline. The highest intention for humanity. That's the timeline we stick to. Thank you everyone for listening. Continue to listen, continue to support us, and I'll continue to provide you with information as I get it. Take care, be well, stay healthy, stay strong, stay alert, and remember the universe. Hold close to your higher self, to the God source. It will be okay. Thank you.